On this episode of That One Movie Podcast, Holden, we're back remote because you have COVID. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, yeah, I have COVID. I found out like a few hours ago, and I am miserable, Jimmy. I've got neck pain, the worst neck pain I've ever had in my life, which apparently is a symptom of COVID, just muscular pain. If you see me wincing or making wincing sounds throughout this, that's definitely why, and not because Jimmy is. I disagree with what Jimmy's saying.
Yeah, your reaction to Napoleon. Wow, gosh. Speaking of, we're going to review Ridley Scott's Napoleon epic that he made. If you want to jump straight to that review, use the time codes down in the description. We will start off spoiler-free. You want to hear those thoughts as well, even if you've seen it, and then we will dive into spoilers after that to kind of talk through the specifics of our review. We're also planning on talking about Marvel's Spider-Man 2 today, available on the PS5, because I finally finished it, platinumed it. Holden did that like a month ago. Holden did that a month ago, so we're going to share our thoughts on that. Beforehand, though, Holden, we're going to discuss the news from this week in the world of entertainment. What are some of our stories this week, Holden?
So we're going to be talking about the Kang Dynasty film. Avengers Kang Dynasty has a new writer. Scream VII had kind of some big casting changes this week. And more. Usually I write a third thing, but I was kind of rushing, so I just wrote and more.
More. All right. I'm highly anticipating that. Again, if you want to jump to any of those discussions, use those time codes once again. I'm Jimmy Youthy.
I'm Holden Sutter.
And it's time for TOMP.
That One Movie Podcast. TOMP.
All right, Jimmy. Before we talk Ridley Scott's Napoleon, let's do the toms.
Let's do the toms.
The toms. Toms is the rapid fire segment in which we rate the news of the week in the world of entertainment on a scale of three famous toms: Brokaw, Bombadil, and Bergeron. Brokaw's the highest, Bombadil's the lowest, and Bergeron is somewhere in between.
I'm not in my normal setup, so I got different stuff going on here. I don't have as much space.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the toms with me because they all live at Jimmy's house. So he's just going to have to show it for me when I say what I want. So
I will get to dictate what our overall rating is.
Yeah, it would be very funny if you just hold up a different one. For like a story that you do like and I don't, you're like, oh no, this is a Brokaw.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, no one's a Brokaw. Anyway, no trailers this week, Jimmy, which, is fine. We had 2 weeks of like 4 trailers each, so it makes sense.
We have plenty to talk about yet.
Yes. First up, Jimmy, Avengers Kang Dynasty. There's been big shakeups around this movie recently, and the newest addition is that Michael Waldron is now attached to write this film, who is fresh. Well, I guess I think he was executive producing on season 2, but he was showrunner for season 1 of Loki, and he also wrote Doctor Strange 2, Jimmy. So.
And his last name sounds like a drug.
It does, yes.
I'd like to prescribe you some Waldron for your drowsiness. As executive producer, Loki season 2, you said something like that?
Yeah, I believe or producer or something like that, but I don't think he was like screenwriter or showrunner rather.
I see. I mean, obviously, I don't have strong feelings towards it, so I'm gonna go Bergeron because this is coming from previously Shang-Chi writer, which I did quite enjoy Shang-Chi. So I'm at a Bergeron, Holden.
I think I'll give it a Brokaw just because I really like Loki season 1, and I feel like they should be playing into their strengths right now at Marvel. So
actually,
the fact that they got him is probably good.
Brokaw, I was thinking the director of Shang-Chi. Screenwriter is from Ant-Man Quantumania, right?
I think so. So
they're changing that.
So this is an upgrade.
Yes. Although the Kang stuff in Quantumania wasn't the weakest part of that movie.
Yeah, no, that stuff was fine, but still, I think in general, especially the Loki stuff is very good. He was very good with Loki season 1, so yeah, Brokaw from me. Next up, Jimmy. This is kind of a big surprise this week. So Scream VII, and they keep shelling out these Scream movies. They're coming out one after another, but this one might take a bit longer.
Boy, I can't wait for the two main characters to be in it.
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, Jimmy, they're not going to be.
Oh, no.
So, Melissa Barrera, who played the lead role, I wrote Sarah. I think it's actually Sam Carpenter. I'm pretty sure I mixed together Sam and Tara as Jenna Ortega's name in the movie. Anyway, Sam Carpenter.
I would have believed you, whatever you said.
She was fired by Spyglass, the production studio, regarding her comments about the Israel-Palestine conflict. According to Spyglass, she said some anti-Semitic, hateful things or whatever. I forgot to write down the exact quote here. But Jenna Ortega, the very next day, was confirmed to not be returning due to scheduling conflicts, which, I don't know about that. Based on, that's the facts right there. So that, take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But Jenna Ortega is another person who has been very outspoken, I think they're both pro-Palestine in this conflict. And from what I understand, she was already looking at having a reduced role because she was like filming Wednesday season 2 was kind of getting in the way of it. If I were a betting man, I'd say that she maybe just dropped out completely because of this solidarity thing. They seem to be good friends anyway, but all we know for sure is that it was scheduling conflicts, according to her kind of rep. And kind of after all of that, Neve Campbell, who is kind of Sidney Prescott of the first 5 Scream movies, and Patrick Dempsey, who I didn't remember was he's in Scream 3, which is the worst one. I didn't remember he was in these movies, have been eyed to return to the franchise kind of in wake of this news. But I don't think official deals or anything have been sent their way or anything. So what do you think of all this, Jimmy?
I'm a believer that you shouldn't make a Scream movie unless you have something to say. And this sounds like they're making a Scream movie just to make a movie. So I'm going to give it a bombadil because their lead actors and actresses are dropping like flies. And if that is happening, I feel like you're just making a movie just to make a movie. And you're just shuffling things around instead of having an intentional story.
Yeah, I felt like the last 2 movies have been very the 2 leads, both Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, have been pretty good. I've liked their dynamic. I thought what they've added to the series has been pretty solid. And so if they're not going to be able to continue with that story, it seems strange because I don't know. In universe, Sidney Prescott is kind of just chilling after Scream 5, so it seems strange to bring her back. I don't know. Yeah, you're right, though. It is probably just making a movie to make a movie because the last one was, I think, the highest grossing Scream movie out of all of them.
Really?
So, yeah.
All right. So bombadil for me, Holden.
Yeah, I'll give it a bombadil as well, Jimmy. Other news this week.
More.
And more. This is the and more section. Superman Legacy, we got some casting news for this. A couple of casting decisions that I think are quite good. First off, Nicholas Hoult, who was previously rumored, is now confirmed to be Lex Luthor.
Renfield.
Skylar, I don't know how to say his last name, Gizondo, is Jimmy Olsen. Who, if you've seen, this guy has a very iconic face. He's great in a lot of things he's in. I know him best from he's in Booksmart, and he's also in Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix. He's very funny. He is this is perfect casting to me to be the Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal character.
Just Superman's buddy is Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, he's the reporter guy who helps Superman out for whatever. But what do you?
Superman doesn't know any reporters,
Yeah, right. Yeah. What do you think of this, Jimmy?
Nicholas. I don't know the other guy.
Sure.
Playing the Jimmy. What's his face? But I like Nicholas Hoult, and I think he's a good Lex Luthor choice. So I'm going to give him a Brokaw. Wouldn't be one that I necessarily would have thought of off the top of my head, but I like it a lot. So there you go. There's my Brokaw, Holden.
Yeah, well, he was, we've talked about before, he was in running to be Superman initially, and then now he's being Lex Luthor. I think he has the range to be probably a pretty menacing villain. I'm trying to think if I've seen him as like a straight up villain in anything.
You could maybe make an argument for the Menu, right? He's pretty antagonistic.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's menacing though.
No, not menacing.
But yeah, he's kind of a bad person in that movie. But yeah, he's got great range, so it'll be kind of fun to see him as Lex Luthor. Excited to see what he does. So Brokaw for both of those for me, Jimmy.
Yes.
Next up, Jimmy, Dave Filoni has been promoted to Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm.
They gave him a bigger hat.
They gave him a bigger hat. He says he is involved with everything they make now in some capacity during the inception phase. What do you think of this?
Dave Filoni is the epitome of you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, I think. I'm going to go Bergeron because Lucasfilm is a mess, and I feel like Dave Filoni at least has a vision for things. But man, Ahsoka was the most mid thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's nice.
And
that
Mandalorian season 3, which I guess he probably would have been less a part of because he was working on Ahsoka. But man, I don't know. I have less confidence in him than I did a couple years ago before Ahsoka came out, I would say.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see.
You're right. It is nice that he has a vision and everything, so hopefully he can maybe guide Star Wars going forward, but I'm not sure if I'm in love with the vision he's really pushing right now with his heir to the Empire stuff. And granted, there's a lot of other things in the works. Like I saw a different article that Lucasfilm confirmed that those 3 movies that they had announced earlier in the year are all still being made. The Rey
That's
movie.
That's noteworthy.
Yeah. But so yeah, there's a lot of other projects that are being made that aren't necessarily part of that storyline. And he's made good things. People really like him. The fans really like him.
Seems like a nice guy. You know?
Yeah, he does. Seems like a nice guy.
Very down to earth guy. George Lucas really likes him, obviously.
Yeah, he's obviously got the passion for Star Wars. But yeah, well, maybe whatever he's like directly making next will change me for the better after Ahsoka, hopefully, because
I'm rooting for him.
Drag. Yeah,
rooting for him. All right, that's where I'm at. So what'd you give him, Holden? Sorry.
I'll give it a Bergeron with you. I'm in the same boat.
Bergerons all around.
Yeah.
All right, next story.
Jimmy keeps almost forgetting to hold up my the face for me, but
that's okay, Holden. You need to have backups at your place.
I should have printed off some like crude ones. It would have been really funny if it was just
you should have just drawn them.
Yeah, draw them, or like I print it out, but I don't cut them out, so it's just a big sheet of paper on a stick. Anyway, next up, Jimmy, there's a new Jason Bourne movie in the works.
Wow.
Matt Damon is apparently returning with All Quiet on the Western Front director Edward Berger directing. Have you seen any of these?
I have not seen any of them.
I haven't either.
Or I've seen all of them and my memory's been wiped.
That's true. Yeah, people seem to like them, although people also attribute them for the shaky cam revolution of the late 2000s. So kind of...
And just the awful action that we got for a decade.
Yeah, I've kind of been wanting to watch at least the original trilogy to some degree, and the first, like, Paul Greengrass is the one that is like attributed with the shaky cam, but he only directed 2 and 3, so I've heard the first one is actually like pretty solid in that regard, but I don't know. I don't feel strongly about this All Quiet on the Western Front director. He made a decent movie. It was good.
I'm going Bergeron. Holden, are you going Bergeron?
I'm going Bergeron.
There we go.
And the final piece of news this week, Jimmy, is that the Office reboot is apparently not actually happening, despite what was said previously by creator Greg Daniels. He clarifies that he's not making a reboot, but a new show set in that universe. He described it like the documentary crew is making a documentary about a different subject. So why does it need to be in the same universe?
I don't know. Brokaw.
Yeah, I'll say Brokaw too. Can't wait for Jim and Pam to show up in the background or something.
Yeah, it should be a reboot of The Office, but in the A Quiet Place world.
Oh, that'd be good.
Jim, you put my stapler in Jello, and he just gets killed by one of the monsters.
That'd be pretty good. Shh, shut up, Dwight.
Shut up, man. All right, well, there we go.
Yeah. That's all for news this week. Kind of a short week for news, but that's okay because we've got two things to talk about that will probably take us a while. So first up, let's just do Ridley Scott's Napoleon movie, Jimmy. Let's do that.
Let's just crank that one out, baby.
Let's crank it out. Get it.
There we go. Non-spoiler review of Ridley Scott's Napoleon, starting right after this.
All right, Jimmy. So we've got Napoleon, the new Ridley Scott film.
I got the synopsis right here, Holden.
Yeah, what's the synopsis?
A look at the military commander's origins and his swift, ruthless climb to emperor, viewed through the prism of his addictive and often volatile relationship with his wife and one true love, Josephine. Holden, on a budget of somewhere between 130 and 200 million. That's a big gap. We have Ridley Scott's Napoleon, and I think this movie's kind of bad. I thought this movie was a dud.
I was worried you were gonna love this movie. I think it's like mid. I think it's mid.
I feel like I have more of appreciation for it than I did while I was watching it, and it's not even like, I know I'm a history person. It's not historical inaccuracies or anything. I just think this movie is boring. I'm like, how did they take one of the most interesting people of all time and one of the most interesting times of all time and made such a boring, long movie without going into depth on anything? The biggest core part of this movie is the relationship between Napoleon and Josephine, and it is horrible. I don't think it works at all. And that is the biggest fundamental
surface level.
It's the biggest fundamental flaw for this movie. And I think the movie completely falls apart because it focuses so much on that. And it's so uninteresting and undercooked. I think Joaquin Phoenix is borderline bad in this movie. I think this is just a steaming pile of poo outside of some very pretty looking action sequences and production design. A lot of technical things that are really good. I think the writing of this movie is hot garbage. I just think this is a bad movie. And again, I don't care about the historical kind of accuracy of it at this point. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be historically accurate. I'm not a big Napoleon expert or anything, but again, the biggest crime of this movie is I just thought it was so boring for huge swaths of this. And just again, I'm like, what are we doing here? And but I have been highly entertained though by Ridley Scott's just old man interviews.
I know. He's like, I don't care. When people are like talking about the inaccuracies, he's just like, who cares?
You're a nerd. Get a life, or whatever he said. I just love how he's like real life Logan Roy, who makes movies.
He
just talks
is.
like
he talks like him.
He looks like him. He talks like him. The dude. Here's what I'll say. The dude is freaking 85 years old, and he popped this movie out. It is very like well done from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, I don't really have much in the way of negatives in that regard. I don't think.
And although I don't think the battle scenes are like great, I think they're solid. Like they just don't.
They're the best part of the movie.
They are by far the most interesting, best part of the movie. They just don't have the extra level of storytelling for me in a lot of ways. There are flashes of it, but again, I feel like we live in an era where a lot of really good examples do exist. So if Battle of the Bastards, that sort of thing, where if you don't have something that has a lot of like geography and stakes, Helm's Deep is another great battle scene.
I
This just like there were moments, and we can talk about them in spoilers. So I'm like, oh, that's a very good moment of storytelling, but it's just kind of ambiguous people shooting at cannons, mainly just cannons at each other.
Yeah, I will say so. I would say probably the second battle. I guess I won't like talk about details, but this is a historical event, so I don't. It's hard to also not do spoilers. I don't know.
Frozen Lake one.
Yeah, the Frozen Lake one is probably the best one.
Yeah, clearly.
I would say. What?
I don't think it's close.
Oh yeah, you think it's easily the best?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was gonna say the movie's climax is Waterloo, which kind of makes sense given history. That one that one is kind of bad in some ways because it was like, so hard to tell what was like where everything was at any point in the scene. I was confused what army was what.
Everybody's talking in British accents, so it's like,
yeah. Joaquin Phoenix is he's not even doing an accent.
Which, whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't matter too much.
I'm used to seeing British reenactments of things. It doesn't bother me that much, but
so
I've watched BBC kind of mini docu series from like the early 2000s about like Julius Caesar that has better like better geographical awareness and like setting the stakes and the plan and articulating that to the audience, and then seeing the kind of strategies being developed, on the spot, or like the audibles called at the line of scrimmage, if you will, like seeing these military strategists adapt to what's going on the battlefield, or at least come with a plan. And basically all they do for Waterloo is, well, we can't let them regroup. We can't let these forces combine. If we do, we're screwed. And hopefully this rain goes away.
Yeah.
And like that's the extent of the strategy that we see from like Napoleon's side. And I don't know. It's very technically impressive to see all these people shooting at each other. But again, we know what happened. So if you're not going to be historically accurate, just ham it up, Yeah.
Make a, fun movie. Play into it a bit, but yeah, so there's some comparisons that I was thinking like movies that could do it, or like that have a better structure than this, that I think if they had kind of followed that structure it would be better. So I think a modern comparison to this movie that is just way better in every way is Oppenheimer, right? I think Oppenheimer, granted it's not, battles or whatever, but you take kind of this controversial figure from history, you spend your time with the character, actually develop his relationships and stuff, and like you show kind of his life, and you understand the character a lot more. You get way more in depth with him than in this movie, where the tagline for the movie, I have it on Wikipedia here. The tagline is literally, he came from nothing, he conquered everything. Well, I wouldn't have known he'd come from nothing if I hadn't read that tagline, because there's no indication of that in this movie. He's already like doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, he's already like a captain or something at the beginning of the movie.
Like there's not that arc for him in this movie for me, because they start at a moment where he's already doing pretty well for himself. The movie essentially starts with this battle that he wins.
Well, it starts with Marie Antoinette getting her head chopped off.
Yeah, starts with that. But then the first big thing is a battle that he wins for the French that gives him a promotion. And there's like no sign of like his struggles or anything, which on one hand, I get why maybe he'd want to avoid that, because that's just like typical biopic stuff. But at the same time, I think it's like necessary for this character in the structure, because I don't feel anything for him. I'm not like happy for his successes, because he's just like kind of a jerk the whole movie. And he's already like, he seems like he was in a good spot at the start of the movie. I don't feel anything for him.
Joaquin Phoenix doesn't have an ounce of charisma in this movie. Like, there's no way any of these soldiers would be like, yep, I'm fighting on your behalf, Napoleon. Just nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is weird because he has great screen presence most of the time, but he's like swallowed up by this movie.
Yeah, I just think it's just a hot mess. I just am like, this movie is so much wasted potential. I mean, and this was my most anticipated movie the rest of the year when the trailer came out, and I was digging it. I was looking forward to it, and I wasn't like I was expecting some sort of documentary, historical, accurate thing. Like, I just thought it was a bad movie.
One comparison, and I kind of alluded to this a bit earlier, but another movie that I think has a structure that this movie would benefit from, and it would help it kind of avoid the kind of crammed nature of it, I think, is the Michael Fassbender Steve Jobs movie.
I was waiting for that. I was like, as soon as you said structure of a different movie, I'm like, I bet he brings up Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
A movie I still haven't seen.
Yeah, you haven't seen it, but like the structure of that movie is you have this guy who, controversial in a lot of ways, but it's essentially centered around three different like big moments in his life. So for Steve Jobs, it was like three different product launches. And here, I think you could easily structure this movie around like Napoleon's three biggest battles or something, and have all this we can kind of learn through exposition and character interaction what has kind of happened in between them. But I think it would make the movie flow better, and it would make it seem less stuffed because we're just condensing everything to these three moments. And it's a very purposeful move.
Yeah, okay. If you're making it, Napoleon, I think that's a good idea if you're starting from scratch. But Ridley Scott set out to, like, his purpose for making this movie was to explore the relationship between Napoleon and Josephine more.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if you could do that through that structure. Here's what I'll say. This movie is incredibly similar to The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's a rise of a dictator and this complicated relationship that they had, and it's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. And I think that movie was way more entertaining and interesting and better acted than this movie. And I did not expect to say that going into this month about these two movies, comparing them to each other. Look, from like a technical perspective and the practical effect perspective, I mean, obviously this movie looks better than the Hunger Games one. Not that the Hunger Games doesn't look good. It's just like, this is a technical achievement. And unfortunately for Ridley Scott, I think he doesn't care about Academy Awards because he says, I don't give an F or whatever he says in his interviews. But I think this is just going to lose out to Killers of the Flower Moon in all the categories it would be up against. So I just think that of two movies that are remarkably similar, being The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Napoleon in kind of surprising ways, I would recommend the Hunger Games movie over this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've been actively pushing people away from this movie. Although I will say, I went to it with my brother, his wife, and my dad, and I was like, I was like, I feel bad for inviting them to this movie. And they all liked it. Like, so I don't know. I was like, I don't know what movie you guys are watching. I thought this was not great. And I feel like of any of us to see this, I would be the one to like it. My brother was more like, I didn't think it was great, but he enjoyed it, I guess.
Okay.
As eye candy.
Yeah, sure.
I just think it's too boring to be. I just think it's too boring for that. Honestly, I would recommend just look up the battle scenes later on, because there's just so much in between that it's just like you said, there's no depth to anything except the Josephine and Napoleon relationship, and that depth is
I would say I would say most of the depth between Josephine and Napoleon is like presented in the first third of the movie, and I don't think it's particularly great. And then it just kind of rides what they explored in that first third for the rest of the movie. So one aspect of it we haven't talked about yet is Vanessa Kirby's performance, which I think is probably the best performance in the movie. She's very good.
I would agree. I would say she's better than Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, she's very good. However, the writing really fails her because, like, she, I think, has a very good understanding of who Josephine was. I'm sure she did all of her research and everything. And she, like, her performance, you can tell there's, like, more to this character that is just not being explored by the movie. Like, the movie loves to, like, linger on her sad or forlorn face and stuff. But, like, we as an audience do not know where that comes from because we're not really given much context for her. Like, we don't.
I never bought that she loved Napoleon for a second. I'm like, and I guess that part, and yet she's supposed to. I don't know.
Yeah,
I was just like, I never bought that. I was like, I have not seen any interaction between them that would give me any idea or any inkling of why she would like him in the first place, other than, I guess, power. But she doesn't seem like power hungry ever.
No. And, like, it's fine for it to be kind of ambiguous, but we're not really given enough like of her, like, fake pretending love or anything. I guess it does just seem like she doesn't love him a lot more than she does love him. We're not given that both sides of that ambiguity for that to be an excuse.
But they seem to heavily imply that they do love each other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't see it.
Yeah.
And I feel like
I don't think that's necessarily. I don't think that's
like
necessarily a chemistry thing. It just feels like a writing thing.
And I was going to say, I feel like Napoleon seems to like the idea of being in love with Josephine more than he actually is in love with Josephine.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It did not work for me. That's all I'm going to say. If it worked for you, I think you're going to enjoy this movie a lot more. I just did not buy it for a single second. I thought they were like big turns. I'm like, this was not an earned twist to their relationship, in my opinion, where they just start to be more affectionate. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It did not seem organic.
And the intention is obviously to show that relationship and kind of Napoleon's power, like, aspirations to be, like, connected in a way. Like, I'm pretty sure that's, like, Ridley Scott's intention, but that does not really come across in any way. They feel very separate. I don't really get the intent or, like, the idea that Napoleon was, conquering all of these places as some part of Napoleon complex, if you will. I feel like out of all things, the Napoleon complex aspect of, like, this story was not portrayed very well. I don't know. It just kind of felt like he was doing it just cause. His motivation didn't make much sense.
They did at least explain why he invaded Russia, but other than that, it's just like, oh, I'm in the French army, so I'm doing this, or oh, I need to put down this rebellion, so I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt like going through the motions for most of it.
I love how, like, literally, like, I don't know what the exact quote is, but at the end of the Battle of Waterloo, like, the British guy goes like, "The battle is over. The day is mine," or something like that. It's just like, what?
That guy, his performance reminded me of the guy from the beginning of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
the Imperial guy.
Although that guy's great.
That guy is great. Yeah.
General, I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just some British officer, general guy. Antagonistic British general. One of my favorite stereotypical characters in a movie. There were jokes in this that my theater did not think were funny. Oh my gosh. There was just some that just
Do you have any? I remember there being a couple of cringe jokes, but I don't remember them. Do you have any off the top of your head?
Isn't there like a line that's pretty funny? It's like, you think you're so big because you have big ships or something like that.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Joaquin says that to the British guy.
I don't know.
I think so. That would make sense.
I think Reddit, the app, they push more like just random subreddits on you these days. Mm-hmm. But I was pushed like the Napoleon subreddit, which has been just great because everybody there hates this movie because it's not accurate. But I just thought there were a couple good like lines that people said. So this is KO4 Champ said, I could live with the historical changes if it was an entertaining movie to watch. It wasn't. Let's see. Yeah, and then Christopher kind of abbreviated. It says, agree. I knew it was going into it, it was historically inaccurate, so it didn't bother me too much. But the writing and the lack of chemistry was painful to endure at times. Someone said, this is Deeg's hobby. I thought the movie would be a tragedy, but as it went on, I realized it's an effing comedy. I thought that was a good one.
Joker reference.
Yeah. There was one that said, let's see if I can find it. No, I can't find it. But it was like, why did Ridley Scott make a whole movie about Napoleon, who he clearly just doesn't care about? But I just like, yeah, there's some good like little one-liners on there. But look, again, this is a very technically impressive movie. A lot of people did very good jobs on this movie, and I don't want to overshadow that. Phenomenal work in a lot of different areas: production design, costuming, makeup, visual effects, just stunt coordination, all these things. Phenomenal. And Ridley Scott directing all that, really good. The writing could use some work. And look, Joaquin Phoenix is a legend, so he's due for to like phone it in a little bit.
Yeah. His performance in Beau is Afraid was a lot better this year.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you
Another
will about
movie
that
I didn't like all that much.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else in non-spoilers. I guess I'll just say the score was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah.
It was... I mean, there was a lot of like classical music needle drops in there, and it was kind of... I won't pretend like I'm the most well-versed in a lot of classical music, so sometimes I was like, I don't know if this is a real piece, like a piece from before this movie, or if this is composed. But I mean, it was all pretty good, so I guess that's something. And yeah, the fact that it's boring is so strange to me because it's so like there's so much that happens. They spend like so little time on everything. It moves so fast in a lot of ways. And it was still just really boring because they didn't really spend the time on stuff unless it was a battle scene, in which case it would maybe take like 15 minutes of the movie. But yeah, otherwise it was just running through a checklist of things you need to do for a Napoleon story.
This movie just felt so much longer to me than Hunger Games did.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
I
didn't realize until you said that it is the same length, but yeah.
I just was like, and it's not like Hunger Games felt short necessarily. I just felt like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready for this movie to just wrap up and be done here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our spoiler-free review of Napoleon. We'll give our score and stuff in a second, or at least Holden will. I would say, who's this movie for? Golly, I would just say avoid this one.
Your dad.
My dad. Dads who want to see big battles like they used to make them.
If you have the stereotypical dad who just likes a big historical epic, they'll probably like this movie.
But even then, I don't know. Because I like the big historical epic, and I was like, I don't know.
It's not a very good one.
I would recommend just watch the YouTube channel Oversimplified. Watch their videos on the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars, because that'll be half as long and 5 times as entertaining. So, at least those are really funny. If you've never seen them, Holden. I don't think I've actually seen the Napoleonic Wars ones. I've only seen the French Revolution ones, I think. But their videos are phenomenal. So check them out. Oversimplified on YouTube. That's what I would recommend instead of seeing this movie, because it's free and it's going to be shorter and way better.
Yeah, makes sense.
And historically accurate.
Yeah. My score for this movie is probably a 5 out of 10, I'd say.
Ooh.
Just very mid. Very mid movie. I will not be thinking about this movie for much longer after we're done recording. Probably will never watch it again.
Yeah, I'm not okay. I don't love Gladiator like some people do, but like I feel like Gladiator is just so much more of more interesting movie. Mm-hmm. You actually have characters, and Joaquin Phoenix is great in that as Commodus. And I don't know, I just feel like there's more style to it. I think the battles in that are pretty cool, like at the beginning. I don't know. And I think the effects hold up really great in Gladiator. And I'm not even the biggest fan of that movie, like I said, but I don't know. After this, I'm less excited for Gladiator 2. But again, Ridley Scott, 85.
Yeah.
Way to go, man. I'm not going to be doing anything nearly as impressive when I'm 85. I'll be pooping in my pants.
Yeah. Ridley Scott has certainly earned himself a lot of clout with all the classics he's made, but he is kind of in that realm right now of flip a coin if this movie's going to be good. The Robert Zemeckis camp, as we like to call it.
Yeah, I need to watch The Last Duel. So
yeah, apparently that's good, but
to some people.
Yeah, to some people. But this, I haven't seen it. This seems more House of Gucci level than than his classics. So
I forgot about House of Gucci. All right, well,
that's
there
it.
you have it.
Yeah, non-spoilers. That's it. So we're gonna move into spoilers then. All right, spoilers for Napoleon, Jimmy.
Excuse
obviously
me.
This is based on real events, so we were kind of loose about the non-spoiler section. Mm-hmm. But where should we start with this?
You want to talk about the sex scenes? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, very, very awkward. I mean, it like intentionally so.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw it described as a like a puppy humping a leg. Kind of energy. Yeah, very, very just.
Let us hope this good deed brings us a son, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Like 2 minutes. It's like literally 20 seconds.
It is,
if even.
Yeah. Good stuff. Love seeing a pathetic sex scene. I mean, honestly, that's kind of how I imagine Joaquin Phoenix just has sex. He's like he's a being that I can't imagine having sex. So it's probably like that in real life. I don't know.
Okay, that's an interesting thing to say. Yeah, I mean, so obviously very intentionally awkward and funny and uncomfortable. Almost Ari Aster-esque.
Yeah,
I would say.
I would say so. Well, and yeah, you think about it, like out of the movies we've seen, probably the movies with like the most awkward sex scenes this year are Joaquin Phoenix led with Beau is Afraid earlier this year as well.
Yeah.
But
he's really making a name for himself. He doesn't want to typecast himself though.
No, he doesn't.
Let's see. What else is there to talk about with this movie? I don't know. Again, most of my thoughts I think went to the non-spoiler wise, other than just a couple of the random lines that they said. One scene that I'm like, okay, when he's coming back from his exile on Elba, whatever the island was, and he's just like, first off, where does he get like the troops that he's walking with in the first place?
Yeah,
and then secondly, they're like about to shoot him, and he's like, you know what? No, you should join me. And they're like,
and then they're like,
sure.
Yeah,
like that was not believable at all. I haven't seen anything in this movie to make me think that this guy has any charisma like that.
People
outside
love
of
Napoleon
the Frozen
Bonaparte.
Lake thing.
Yeah, that is like the most rushed part of the movie was him, like pretty much everything after them invading Russia. I felt like everything after that was just it looked like they were running 60 miles an hour or whatever, like because he gets like they get back, he's immediately exiled. There's like no build up, there's really no build up to that at all. It's just, oh, you made a bad decision, you're getting exiled.
Well, like, okay, that could be the Oppenheimer part of it, right? Where it's like he gets back, he's like the hero, and then the third act is his exile.
Yeah, if we wanted it structured like that, that'd be interesting.
Although then you wouldn't. That would have to be like the second act almost.
Yeah.
You'd have to like start with him already at the top, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't really lend itself to a 3-act structure.
No.
I think that's kind of a problem with this movie.
Anyway. But yeah, then he's exiled, and then a couple minutes later he's escaped. Like, it's so rushed, and he already has these guys, and as you said, he just somehow convinces those other guys. Like, his comeback, and then he's just like suddenly in charge of France again. They don't like make any big deal about it. Like, they're just like, it might have even been like the scene right before Waterloo. They're just like, oh yeah, he's just in charge. I'm like, okay, well, great.
Yeah.
I will say, and you might laugh at me for this, I did not remember if Waterloo was a historic, like an epic victory or an epic failure. I could not, like, I don't remember, I don't know like anything about Waterloo. So I
mean, my brother said he thought it was literally a sea battle. So
yeah, well, with water in the name, that makes sense. But yeah, I couldn't remember. So in that regard, I was like, okay, is this the part where he's like, he gets fully exiled or whatever? And it was, but.
You like my comparison for Thrawn and Ahsoka now as Space Napoleon?
Yeah.
He's just exiled off to
exiled and comes
and
back.
Come
it
back.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Space Napoleon.
Yeah, once Napoleon divorces Josephine just has like nothing to do for the rest of the movie. It's just like a lot of voiceover.
But see,
letters.
Holden, her character arc is that beginning of the movie, she doesn't know that Napoleon's coming home. And at the end, she's like, but Napoleon's coming back. I can't die. I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's coming back. And that's her character. Because for some reason, she falls in love with him, even though I don't know where that happened or when that happened or how that happened. And for some reason, they're sad about their divorce. I get Napoleon's side because he's just like, goo goo gaga for this girl for some reason.
Yeah, and he's
her side. I'm like, what is she getting out of this? Like, she was already an aristocrat. It's not like she was she was like a widow. Okay, so she had lost some of her status, but I don't think the movie does a good job portraying what she is getting out of the relationship at all.
No,
because other than like genuine love for him, but I did not catch on to any of that. From the writing or the performance.
That's strange that that seems to be like their relationship that they're pushing. Because from what little I know about their relationship in real life, like I felt like it's not that way. like I've from what like letters I've just seen shared around in the internet, I've always read it as like it's much more one-sided, and maybe there's a little reciprocation, but yeah, no, they're really pushing reciprocated love here. Which just doesn't make any sense. Also, she has kids that just disappear. She has like kids at the beginning. She has a son and a daughter. The son comes and gets Napoleon at the beginning of the movie. Then the son I don't think is ever seen from again. And then at the end of the movie, Napoleon talks to her daughter, and I'm like, oh, that's her daughter? She had been like in like the background in a couple of scenes earlier and just not mentioned at all. I was like, oh, okay. Her daughter.
Yeah. What happens? Do they show what happens to Napoleon's kid?
No, I don't think so.
Because he has his kid, and then he brings the kid to Josephine, and Josephine's like, "You don't know how much I sacrificed for you to be alive."
Oh my god, that line sucked.
I'm like, what? What? I don't understand why you were so sad to divorce him. You did not seem to be happy.
Yeah, it was so bizarre.
The relationship didn't work for me.
There were also just like some random side characters that just stopped showing up at a certain point, like Napoleon's brother.
Yep.
He was just like in the first third of the movie, and then he never shows up again. All right.
He's not at Waterloo?
He might be. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
A lot of them a lot of his like aides look very similar. I was having a hard time keeping them apart, especially since like they're not given much of any character in the movie. So
I don't know. Apparently the frozen lake thing never even happened or whatever. It was like ponds that he had dried out or something, and it was unintentional, and I don't know what it was. It was a cool scene in the movie.
It was a very cool scene. It was very, like, it felt like it could happen in real life to some degree. Like, it felt like that could be a very bold strategic move that someone would come up with. And then, you know, that's one of the ways he earns respect is his, you know, ingenuity or whatever. But yeah, it's not real. So I don't know. It's fine though. It was the best battle scene in the movie.
Ridley Scott really channeled his old man Mel Gibson energy though, with some of the just grotesque, unnecessary violence that's in this, and gore, like that horse getting just obliterated by that cannonball.
The beginning of the movie,
just tasteless, hilarious.
There was that bit where like they shot at the protesters and the one lady's like is like crawling after her leg or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Saw 3D levels of just tasteless gore.
Violence.
Hilarious though. Robespierre shoots himself in the head and misses. He's just bleeding over. I'm not even sure if that's real. I'm like, he like shoots himself. I'm like, I am like 95% certain that Robespierre was guillotined. And then like he missed, off to the guillotine with you. I should look that up. Did Robespierre try to shoot himself?
Probably not.
Well, it could have happened. I think it's hilarious if he didn't. Okay. There are two conflicting accounts of how Robespierre was wounded. The first one puts forward that Robespierre had tried to kill himself with a pistol. And the second one is that he was shot by Charles-Andre Maida, one of the officers occupying the Hotel de Ville. So I guess he did.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, it made for a nice little dramatic scene. So I guess cool that, you know, that part's accurate.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else about this movie. Reiterating what I said in non-spoilers, it's just so strange the starting point they start at. Because it just doesn't, I never felt like anything Napoleon did was very earned. Especially as you said, because he doesn't have much charisma in the movie to where you'd think that, you know, these people would switch sides or, you know, commit coups and stuff because of him. Didn't make much sense. Didn't seem like people would love him for any reason. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like they should have just told the movie from Josephine's perspective.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, are we going to get a Priscilla-style Josephine movie next?
But I'm like, that doesn't seem very exciting, though. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be more interesting than this, because what we got here is a very standard biopic, but so crammed together and without really anything interesting happening.
I like that he attempted to make it different by focusing on the relationship. It just didn't work.
No. Yeah. It felt like he was really like, it felt like he thought what we got between them at the beginning of the movie was enough to carry the movie, and it just wasn't. Because after, like I said, the first third, it felt like it was very inconsequential.
Why are you staring at me? I wasn't staring at you.
I wasn't staring.
I wasn't staring at you. Yes, you were.
The awkward nature of their courting, I was like, okay, this kind of works for me because like Napoleon historically has seemed to be kind of a little weirdo. So I was like, this kind of makes sense, but yeah, then we're supposed to believe that Josephine is like in love with him, and we don't really see where that aspect comes from, what she saw in him. No. Unless she just loves little weirdos. Because
she didn't really seem to be manipulating him.
No. Which I thought the trailer kind of implied that. I thought with what clips they used from the trailer, I was like, okay, so is that what Josephine's relationship to Napoleon's going to be, and that's how that's going to connect into his ambition? But no, that's not what happened. She's just there.
Yep. Napoleon falls over and dies.
He does.
Oh.
I saw some people say it was a really good final shot, and I was like, seems pretty average. Seems pretty average for a movie like this. I don't know.
Rosebud. Josephine.
Yeah, it was no Oppenheimer final shot. Also, Oppenheimer, I may be going crazy here, and I probably am. But if anyone else noticed this, then maybe I'm not, and I forgot to look it up. The scene where Josephine is at her like new estate and she's down at the pond looked like the pond scene from Oppenheimer. It looked like the exact same location, with Oppenheimer and Einstein behind that big ol' house down at the pond. I was like, is this the same location?
It would be funny if it was.
Yeah, I might look that up and see if I can find anything after this. I might be the only one that thinks that too, but I was like, this, and granted, maybe just a lot of European estates look like that, but I don't know, big European estates. But I was like, this looks very, very much like the Oppenheimer final scene. But I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't notice. But yeah, there we go. Anything else to say about good old Napoleon?
I don't think so. Just mid movie. Which
I saw, I fell asleep.
I am still astounded.
Wait, that's Julius Caesar,
you liked this
though.
less than me. I fully expected to come in here and be the Debbie Downer.
No. I was the Debbie Downer of my group. I was like, oh, weighing everybody down.
I just went on my own, so I was the Debbie Downer of my group too.
I feel like the way I've reviewed it is not as bad as it is. I feel like it's better than I've portrayed it as. So,
sure. Yeah. I feel like we tend to do that. We either if it's a movie we're more positive on, we tend to be more positive in the review, or if it's a movie we're more negative on, we tend to be more negative. So, yeah. That's just the way it works, I guess. The way the cookie crumbles.
It is the way the cookie crumbles. All right. Any last final words for you, Holden? France, leader of France, Army, Josephine, whatever he says.
Yeah, France, Army, Josephine. There we go. Like the three most important things in his life. So
there we go. All right. Let's talk about Spider-Man 2. This is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. We both platinumed Spider-Man 2, so everything could be spoiled here. So if you have not played Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5 or PC, if that's out yet when you listen to this, skip over this. Go to our final segment of the show, which is What Are You Doing? Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next episode of That One Movie Podcast. But Holden, let's dive into our spoiler-filled discussion of Spider-Man 2.
All right, Jimmy.
Yes.
Spider-Man 2, the video game.
Not the movie.
And not the Spider-Man 2 video game from the early 2000s. This is the new one from Insomniac, sequel to the 2018 game Spider-Man. Game we were very hyped for. We don't do a ton of video game reviews on this podcast because we're usually playing things at different times. But sometimes if there's a game we're both hyped for and we play it right when it comes out, the stars align.
Yes, or we play it simultaneously later on or something.
Yeah,
we've done a few.
It's varied. We did.
We've done The Last of Us.
We did
2.
Yeah,
we've done Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah,
not
God
Survivor.
of War.
God of War Ragnarok. Control.
Oh yeah, we did do Control.
I think those are some of them. We may have done another one, but.
Yeah,
those ones come to mind.
Most of them. They're mostly PlayStation exclusives because Jimmy's a Sony fanboy.
Yeah, well, just as much as you are, Holden.
I've got a Switch.
I'm more likely to get an Xbox than you are.
No, that's probably true.
In fact, I own an Xbox One, so.
I've got a 360, so I'm a Microsoft fanboy too.
Yeah, there we go.
Anyway, Spider-Man 2. Do you have do we do a synopsis for this? I don't know.
This is our spoiler-filled discussion, so we don't.
That's
need
true. Yeah. So, Spider-Man 2. Where should we start with this?
Let's
I guess
start
overall,
at the beginning.
I'll give my overall thoughts. I really liked this game. It is not flawless. Far from it, I would say. I liked it more as it went on, I think, in general. But it's not as good as the original in most aspects. I might like it more than Miles Morales just because it's a bit longer. There's a bit more going on, but it's kind of might be unfair to compare those two. But it's a solid game. It was a nice sequel. I enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it. What do you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, I would definitely say the second half of the game is much better than the first.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that is it significantly shorter than the first game?
I think it's like the same length from what I understand.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I wanted to say that it took me like 40 hours to platinum the first game.
Well,
and this one took me less than 30.
Okay, and I think in terms of story, it's about the same length. Maybe with other stuff included, it's shorter. But because there might be like the less activities, and also maybe the activities in general are just shorter. But I think story wise, it's like the same length. So.
I don't know. I like the story of the first one better, I would say. I think it's
it has a lot
tight.
higher highs for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just pretty tight all around.
Mm-hmm.
I think Doc Ock and Mr. Negative work better for me as antagonists than Venom and
Kraven. Doc Ock is like, it's pretty easy, I think, to have like an interesting story with him because he's a very good Spider-Man antagonist in general, and they had a good angle with it. And then with someone like Mr. Negative is a villain a lot of people don't really know. He's kind of more of a modern Spider-Man villain. I knew nothing about him before that game, so you could really do anything with him, and they did do something interesting with him, so that was kind of nice. But Venom is a villain that can be interesting, and I think is the better of the two villains in this game. Kraven is a villain that can be interesting, but they just did nothing with, and he is the main villain for way too long in this game too. It's bizarre. It felt like the Kraven stuff felt so like much of a step back in this game compared to like the villains in the previous game, because it just felt like they just put him in there to have a villain, and they didn't really have anything interesting for him to do.
They're like, well, we need another villain to have you kind of focused on while we're setting up all the symbiote stuff.
Yeah.
And then who's the biggest bad that Venom can kill to make him look legit? Kraven. My big thing is not that Kraven's in it. It's just, why does he have like just 100,000 goons? Like, yeah, it seems like the most like I heard someone talk about like he should have been like more of like a Mr. X style.
Oh, that would have been
character,
cool.
And that's where I'm at, or like the how they did the Taskmaster stuff in the last game. Well, really fun, or something. But like this again, like the what's it called? Silver Sable, the Sable stuff.
Oh, I think it's just called Sable or Saber or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say Saber, but I'm like, that's the Marvel. That's
the other
Marvel.
I think it is just called Sable.
The Sable stuff, like it felt like just the Sable army again, except instead of Silver Sable, it was Kraven.
It is. It's kind of a tough nut to crack because, like, on one hand, you do need a group of enemies to fight, right? Like, you need something like that. You don't want it to just be street thugs because those can get pretty boring, and also they're much weaker compared to a lot of the other antagonists. But yeah, it's so weird for Kraven because it's like this weird, like, seemingly multi-million-dollar corporation that Kraven owns and has all of these goons for. And their entire purpose just seems to be to hunt people for Kraven or find people for Kraven to hunt, and that's all they do. It
just felt so goofy.
It was really
so
goofy.
Out of place.
And I feel like if you had to do it that way, you could like give Kraven more of a backstory to explain how he has these resources. Like even something like that. Like it still would be goofy, but we don't even get that. And so it's just very confusing as to why he has this and why they run it the way they do. Bizarre.
Yeah, I thought Kraven as an antagonist didn't really work from a story perspective. I thought the performance was quite good. by the actor. And
the actor's name is, but yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like I had really a lot of fun when I playing as Venom, taking him out. Like I thought that was a great part of the game.
I will say I was up until the moment where he killed Kraven, I was sure Kraven was going to be Venom.
Yeah, I thought to okay. I mean, through all the pre-stuff, the pre-release stuff, I was like, well, Venom's just obviously going to be Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
And then playing the game, I'm like, because Harry seems to have the symbiote for a long time without going evil or even showing any traces of it. And I'm like, well, Harry's like Harry-sized when he has the symbiote. Peter Parker is Peter Parker-sized with the symbiote. So that makes me think that Kraven is going to turn into Venom. So I thought that was a good, like, red herring. But why does the symbiote just all of a sudden get so much bigger?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it would have honestly maybe worked better for me if Kraven was Venom in some ways, because I felt like the conflict between Harry and Peter was really rushed. Like,
it felt like it came out of nowhere.
I didn't really.
You were
buy
mean to me in like one scene, Peter.
Yeah,
I was gonna die.
That's really all it was he was just mean to Peter in one scene, which obviously the symbiote has been taking stuff from Peter and probably his aggression and adding that onto Harry's aggression and whatever, but it still just felt so weird. I
really like the idea that Venom is Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
A to B didn't quite work to me.
Yeah.
I think it's so much interesting to be Harry, so much more interesting to be Harry than pretty much anybody else. Especially Eddie Brock, because like I don't.
Yeah,
never really. I've never found Venom all that interesting or cool. That's kind of just the saying that it's putting it out there. And I was very excited during the Spider-Man post-credit scene after the first game, where you kind of get a sense that maybe Harry's gonna be Venom in the next game, and I thought that's a really cool idea. So yeah, I like the idea of it. I think it was. Somebody said, I think it might have been Brian Intihar or somebody at Insomniac was like, we thought like the idea of it being his best friend would increase the stakes so much more and make it so much more emotionally driven than just like Eddie Brock.
Yeah,
which I think is a really good
Eddie
twist
Brock
on the lore.
Because it would just be a random character you introduce in this game. And even if you write him very well, like you'd have to build up this like rivalry between him and Peter. And it also wouldn't make much sense given in this continuity, like Peter's not really with the Daily Bugle at this point, so
unless the rivalry was with Mary Jane or something,
yeah, something like that. But
oh gosh, I was gonna say something.
I'll also say Miles had like nothing to do in this game.
No, I thought that especially for the first half, I was like, Miles seems like an afterthought in this game of just like. I think it's a good idea that it's like, okay, who is the outside of Spider-Man? Like, I think that's an interesting idea, but the guy had nothing to do.
No. And it is unfortunate because I think his game's pretty good. I think what they do with him in his own game is pretty solid. And just in general, I like this version of Miles. I like that you're able to play as both him and Peter. And Miles is kind of like under Peter's wing in this game. I think that's all fun and good. And then and there are moments in this game where we get to see Miles kind of come into his own a bit. And I think those are good. But for the most part, it's until you get to like him confronting Mr. Negative at the end, it's just like most of it seemed I've seen people joke about it online, but there's so much like him like talking to Genki being like, Martin Lee's still out there, I need to find him. And
which he does he even talk about Martin Lee in his own game? That doesn't even seem to be like a plot point of Miles Morales. It just seems like it was created for this game.
I mean, I can like get behind it because it doesn't seem like it becomes like a thing for him until Lee escapes.
Okay.
So like maybe it's just something that like, he was comfortable with Lee being behind bars and everything, and now that Lee's escaped, he's like, I gotta stop him before he hurts people. But yeah, and I liked the mission with them together was nice. That was probably the best Miles moment in the game. But Yeah. Other than that, it was him worried about Lee constantly and his college essay or whatever.
I had completely forgotten about his mom's like boyfriend because it was like the post-credit scene or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, this was the thing like 20 hours ago.
Yeah.
Like, I had fun getting Charlie Parker's saxophone back, but I mean,
yeah, that museum side, I did not hate the museum side quest as much as a lot of people did. I honestly forgot about it until just now when you mentioned it. There's a lot of people that like really hate it. It's fine. It's just, once again, it's Miles and it's far less interesting than the Peter stuff. Yeah. It's just like you have like Miles has that, and then Peter's like equivalent is the flame missions, which are just way better. like night.
A great twist at the end.
Yeah.
I'm like, because he's like getting the thing, and it was like the red symbiote. I'm like, this dude Carnage.
Yeah. Well,
and then he said, "In Carnage" or whatever he said.
Yeah. Well, I saw it when we first saw him in the mission where you fight what's her name, Yuri.
Wraith. Yeah, Yuri.
Wraith. When I first saw him, I was like trying to figure out who this guy was. I'm like, there's no way this is just some random guy made up. I was like, he's redhead. He could be Carnage, because that's like Cletus Cassidy's defining like physical trait. But I also wasn't sure. I thought it was interesting because I don't know if like Cletus Cassidy being the head of a cult is like a thing in like the comics. I thought that was an interesting angle for him. Also. Yeah. If he's the main villain of the next game, there you go. There's your guys you fight in the next game. He has a cult working under him, which is built up more in this game, which is why it might work better.
Okay. We can talk about setup for next game. Well, let's remember to talk about setup for next game.
Sure.
Before we end, because there's quite a few things
to
talk about.
I'll just finish up quick the flame stuff since we're on it. The fight against Yuri I thought was really good. That was a fun boss fight.
It was like kind of reminded me of Deathstroke a little bit. Batman Arkham Origins.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good fight in that game. So I thought that was very good. I liked that while you were doing the flame missions before you fight Yuri, that you can find Wraith in the overworld, sometimes fighting guys alongside you. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, and then happens after the game too. You can she still teams up with you. All that is just fun. Just the ally team ups.
Mm-hmm. Anytime anyone would show up, you have Miles, you have Harry when he's just like Agent Venom, and then you have Wraith, and yeah, that's all good. All good stuff.
Yeah. Side stuff. I think the best side stuff was, like you said, the flame, and then the Mysterium stuff.
Yeah, that Mysterium stuff. That was probably the best Miles like stuff.
I'm a sucker for Mysterio, Holden, ever since the original Spider-Man 2 game.
Yeah.
That I played on Xbox, by the way. The original Xbox. And
the boss fight in this is not as good as the boss fight in that game.
No. Well, there's multiple Mysterio boss fights.
Oh, that's true.
One where you meet him. I just remember being like second grade, grinding on that game, and because games are hard when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
And like, there's like multiple Mysterio boss fights, and then like you meet him again, like in a convenience store, and his health bar goes like 5 times. It like goes so over it, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it's like there's a quick time event, and you're supposed to hit the right button. I actually hit the wrong button. I'm like, no. And like you take him out anyway, and he just like falls over, and his like fishbowl comes off. He's like, oh no. And then that's like he gets arrested, and then that's like the last you see of him. That's a pretty funny bit.
I own that original Spider-Man 2 game. I got it at a garage sale for like $1 a couple years ago for GameCube. I haven't played it yet. I do kind of want to play it just to see. I know it probably is not going to hold up as well as like what a lot of people have memories of, but some people say it's still like a lot of fun. But I have seen that.
Dude, I just remember a lot of things were timed in that game. Oh, the anxiety-inducing of that nature of that timer. I remember Shockers in it quite a bit too.
Okay.
Yeah, the story is. I mean, it has Spider-Man 2's story in it, but there's so much else just like in that game, which is just like a movie tie-in. That yeah.
Oh, I mean, no, my balloon. It kind of makes sense that you'd add in other villains other than just Doc Ock.
But I mean, it was a movie tie-in game. Like they didn't need to. Is kind of the point, and they did, which is a lot of fun.
Anyway, back onto this because we kind of moved away for a second.
Other fun side stuff.
Howard mission. It's pretty good.
That was nice. That was cute. That was
a nice little mission. A lot of people. Oh, that's like a lot of people's like favorite part of the game.
The one where you play as Haley is interesting. I thought it was too long.
Yeah.
Miles's deaf love interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's great. That quest was fine. There aren't like a ton of just straight up side quests in this game.
The Brooklyn Visions ones, I were like,
yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. Just kind of busy work. The Sandman crystals, fine. Those are fun. I mean, honestly, I know it's like very generic for these open world type of games, but anytime it's just like you just fight a bunch of guys, like those are fun. Yeah. maybe I'm a bit of a sucker.
I love the bases. There's not nearly as many bases in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And
I thought the bases in general were like more interesting though, because there were like kind of different like locations and layers to it. Like,
and you had to like take out certain things. I just thought stuff was way easier in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just made a million of the web lines, and you could
let's
especially when you got the double takedown. It was just like I didn't have to try at all.
Yeah,
I never even used Miles' camouflage because I would forget about it.
Stealth in general was just, I think, worse overall. I think like combat, you could make an argument either way, but stealth it's just oversimplified. Making the web lines everywhere just trivializes everything, and you can make them from so far away. You can just like put them from like make them from across the building from you. There's like no limit to the distance on the web lines. Yeah, the double takedowns. I got that pretty late. I waited to upgrade that, so I don't know. It was fun, but made it so easy. And I was talking to you about it.
You can't use any of the gadgets.
Yeah, you can't use the gadgets in stealth, which was a big thing in the first and second game. There's no like tripwires. There's none of the little electric shock things.
I also feel like there was just like less of the environmental takedown stuff in stealth too. Like there were some, but I just felt like there was not as much or as much of an emphasis. It seemed like the emphasis was make a web line and take these people out.
Yeah,
hit the barrel to distract them, take them out.
Yeah, which I like me a good perch takedown, but yeah, it just made it way too easy in this game, which was a disappointment. But combat-wise, I came around on certain aspects of it. I would say probably overall, I'd say it's like there's some things that are better, some things that are worse. So I'd probably say in general, it's like on par with the first game.
They're different. They're pretty different, which is surprising.
It is very different. That's the thing. So in the first game, obviously, if you're listening to this, hopefully you've played this game. But in the first game, you would have gadgets, and it would be attached to R1, I think. And then you would hold down R1, I believe, and it would pull up like kind of a little weapon wheel type thing that you could select. And for me, I felt like that was just more intuitive. I got used to how they did it in this game, but it was just kind of weird mapping it onto these different buttons and everything. It was a little bit confusing. It took me a little bit to get used to that. In general, the gadgets in the first game, I think, are just more interesting too. Like,
I never used the freaking vertical thing, and I never used the
ricochet web.
And I would have used the concussion burst if it wasn't so useful against the Venom symbiote things.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just like the web grabber thing that just brought everything to the middle.
The web grabber was great, especially when it like added the electricity stuff. But yeah, for the most part, like all I would do is I would just like fire off all my gadgets in a big fight. And then just like it would take some guys out, or it would weaken pretty much everyone. That's the only time I would use the ricochet web or the levitating thing.
It's like the levitating thing. Like both Miles and Peter have powers that just do the levitating thing too.
Yeah.
So it's like
it's pretty pointless, like and it doesn't keep them up there for that long. It's like it seemed very pointless, and it doesn't really. I don't think they take really any damage from it either. So.
No. I miss me some impact webs and some web bombs and some trip mines and all that stuff.
Those were all so good. I hope they bring those back for the next game. It seems to be a lot of people share that opinion with the gadgets being worse. So maybe.
Well, it's just weird that you had 4 and then those were the 4. Like you didn't get any other, and it was the same for Miles and Peter.
Too. Yeah, Miles has the same gadgets. But then kind of the other aspect attached to that in a way is the powers, which for Miles is the Venom powers, and then Peter can switch between the spider arm powers and the symbiote powers later on in the game.
Which the symbiote powers are just so much better. It's
like in every way.
Close.
When I was like trying to platinum the game, I didn't look at the trophies really until later in the game, and I had not been using the spider arm powers like at all. I just kept forgetting they were there. And then I saw there was one that was like defeat 100 enemies with spider arm powers. I was like, well, I just unlocked the symbiote powers, so I guess I've got to switch to the worst stuff for a little bit. And I did do that. I eventually got it, the symbiote powers are just way better. Same with like Miles. I think like the elevated Venom powers are just like in general way better than the normal Venom powers. I don't really get why you would want to switch back after you unlock them.
Yeah. They're
fine. It's like the gadgets where you just kind of use them all and then wait for them to recharge. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's whatever. I get why they would add it for Peter, because obviously you introduce that for Miles and Miles Morales, and you're not just going to take it away. And they were very.
And you're going to give him symbiote powers, so he needed something in the meantime.
Yeah, but I don't know. They're whatever. I felt like they were more. I felt like they were just, those powers were better implemented in Miles Morales because it was like more core to that game's identity. And in this game, it's just like, oh, here's just some powerful moves you can use against some ways of enemies, I guess.
And now he just is going to have the symbiote powers going forward?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I was like, there has to be some way that you get the symbiote powers because there's also a trophy attached to that. So there has to be some way.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I didn't have that when he lost the suit. I'm like, am I just screwed here? I'm like, there's no way other people did this. I don't understand that how the anti-venom suit works. Like, how does he have the symbiote but not have it?
Yeah, because like
it seems just like the best of both worlds.
They like went into his mind or whatever to like. Martin Lee and Miles did it to like rescue Peter from the symbiote's like influence. But like, yeah, he doesn't just have the symbiote again, does he? I don't know. That doesn't make, I mean, I guess it's like, I think the implication is also that it's partially Martin Lee's powers that are like given to him, but that also doesn't make the most sense because it's not like Martin Lee has symbiote powers. So I don't know.
No.
I
don't know either. Yeah, no, I cannot believe Harry Osborn did not die. I was like, this guy is so dead. The whole game, I was like, Norman, just every time Norman sees him, he talks about how much he loves him and what he would do without him. Like, I don't know what I would do without you, Harry. I'm like, well, you would turn into Green Goblin in the third game, clearly. So Harry has to die. And he just didn't.
Yeah, yet another thing that is very just forced, just Norman Osborn being mad at Spider-Man.
That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, like, that was like he's just angry. Like, it made no sense to me. Like, even if you were to like just say, well, it's just like rushed there, it just makes no sense because like he knows Harry is Venom. Harry is still alive. Spider-Man, took care of the situation. Like, yeah, you can be a little peeved that Harry's in a coma, but like he's like bloodthirsty for Spider-Man out of nowhere.
Yeah, both of them. It's not like he even saw him doing anything.
No.
He just like literally saw him coming out of the building, and then Harry's there. He's like,
what'd you do to my son? I'm like, I don't know.
What did you do to my son?
About to kill everyone.
That has now freed the symbiote, which was my whole goal in the first place, and he's still alive. How dare you do exactly what I was trying to accomplish? I'm gonna kill you. Turn evil.
I'm gonna be Green Goblin. Yeah, that was very silly. Very silly.
I keep forgetting that Otto Octavius is alive too. Like, he didn't die at the last game.
Nope.
What are you doing? Writing the final chapter, Norman. I'm like, why are you don't have the thing on, dude. You're not supposed to be like just diabolical.
Yeah, right. And also, how is he like walking around? How is he writing things?
Yeah.
Isn't that like part of the point? He doesn't have like his arms can't really write anything.
Yeah.
How are you writing the final chapter, Otto?
And yeah, what is he writing? Is it going to be another Sinister Six thing?
Yeah, that's what I don't like. They did the Sinister Six before. Like, yeah, you're going to have Green Goblin. I don't know. We can talk about next game stuff at the end, like you had mentioned earlier. Otherwise, story stuff, we hadn't really talked about like the actual story, like chapters.
Sandman fight at the beginning is great.
It's fantastic. It's so good. I think in general, and I mentioned this to you multiple times, I think in general the story missions are more fun than in the first game. I felt like they trimmed the fat in a lot of ways.
I agree. I would say there's not as many dull moments. I don't know. I would say it doesn't reach... The story itself doesn't reach the heights. The fun factor does.
Yes. There's a lot of just really great set piece moments in this. Great just general battles, great boss battles.
The second half of this game has so many boss battles that are just downright fun.
It is. It's like,
and I'm not a big boss battle person. And I just was like, well, this is a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm big on boss battles. But yeah, no, there's so many in the second half of the game. It's kind of like the first game in that way, where like the first game, like you have Kingpin at the beginning, you fight Shocker at a point, but then everything's at the end. This game's the same way. Mary Jane levels way better in this game. I thought they were actually a lot of fun in this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I still didn't like love them, but they were less annoying.
Mm-hmm. There's only 3 of them, and she's able to. It's a bit silly that she can just sneak up and tase the hunters. I will say that's a bit silly, but at least she's able to hold her own a bit more. The one where the hunters are like at Aunt May's house, and I think that mission's really good. Actually, I'm like, she's like, while the symbiote is like possessing Spider-Man and just taking these guys out, she's like trying to get away. I thought that was
the part
a very
where she's
good
just
mission.
straight up running away from Peter is pretty terrifying.
Yeah. So yeah, in general, those are better. And that they don't really have. Those are kind of the extent of like the walking story missions in this, unless you're playing as Peter.
When she turns into Scream, that's fun.
Yeah, she turns into Scream. That was a good fight.
In general, I Scream.
I thought
she existed.
I thought Peter and MJ's dynamic in this game was pretty good. I feel like out of most character like dynamics, theirs was probably developed the best, aside from maybe Peter and Harry. But I liked their relationship. I liked Peter and Harry, what they did with that. I thought they did a good job of establishing Harry, even though he wasn't in the previous game. You spent a lot of time with Harry, so I think that helps.
Yeah. I feel like this game missed out on a Yuri type of character a little bit. Because I think she's like she's a pillar of that first game.
Yeah.
In terms of her communication with Spider-Man. I liked the little spider cop reference in one of the flame missions. I was like, I forgot about that bit. But I don't know. I think the one thing that got better throughout the game too was just the random crimes. At the beginning of the game, they're just awful. And they're like dumbed down versions from the first game, where it's like the high speed car chase, which was like one of my favorite things to do in the first game. With like
just like a button press in this.
You literally press one button and it's over. Mm-hmm. I was like, that is not nearly as satisfying. Why did they change it? I didn't understand. But I think by the end of the game, they're pretty fun.
I do like how just like I think by the end of the game they do a really good job of just the different factions just like coming in on you, and like you'll be like fighting symbiotes and then just like hunt. I one time had I think it started with just like regular like street thugs, and then like symbiotes showed up, and then hunters showed up, and then I think maybe even like flame guys showed up. I think I had like every faction come into this one crime, and that stuff is like pretty randomized, so that won't happen for everyone. But I thought that kind of interaction between all of them was fun.
I think you have that somewhat in the first game. But yeah, no, I like that interaction too. But yeah, I thought the random crimes got a lot better. I don't know. There's the side mission where you follow the drones and then you find out like Camouflage is the name, and it's like the brother, and it's basically Hush from Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh, you mean Chameleon?
Chameleon. Sorry, what did I say?
Camouflage.
Whatever.
Yeah, Chameleon's like Spider-Man's first supervillain. Like in terms of comics, like I'm pretty sure Amazing Spider-Man #1 is Chameleon is the villain. And I'm gonna be honest, I completely thought that the boyfriend at the end was Chameleon.
The boyfriend at the end
that shows up at their place, Miles's place, because I thought they were like very similar looking character models.
Okay, well, he's like, "Here's my daughter," and then it cuts.
Who's his daughter? That's supposed to be Silk.
Who's Silk?
He's a Spider Woman, Cindy Moon.
Okay, I was like, I don't know who this person is, and clearly I was supposed to.
Yeah, the guy says I can't remember what the dad's first name is, but it's something, like, and then last name is Moon, so that's supposed to be Silk, I guess.
Okay, I don't know who Silk is. Sorry.
Yeah.
Spider Gwen. I know Spider Gwen. Who would have known that the drones were Spider-Man 2099? I felt like that was the most obvious thing.
The spider
bots. Yeah, spider bots, sorry.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I thought the little cutscene was still fun though. How they incorporated.
Oh yeah, it was still
Spider-Verse.
fun, but I was like, yeah,
it makes sense. So does that mean that this must take place before Across the Spider-Verse? Because Insomniac Spider-Man is in Across the Spider-Verse. So, boom.
Whoa.
He's the only character that runs at 60 frames per second in that movie. Fun fact.
Holden, which skins did you play as most of the game for
good question.
Spider-Man and Miles Morales?
So, I really like the Spider-Man 3 symbiote suit. So when I had the symbiote, I was that like all the time. There were only a couple symbiote suits. I was kind of surprised. There was the one made for the game. There was like the very original one. There was the Spider-Man 3 one, and I think that might have been it.
I think that's it for Peter Parker.
Yeah. So I did that, and I'm trying to think of the other suit I used. Miles, I used the 2099 suit, the one with the glowing eyes. I love that's from the Miles Morales game. I think that's just like his best looking suit. I think that's very fun with the hood up and everything.
The blue variant, the navy, white and red.
I kind of switched between the different variants for that one. I don't think I had a specific one. I did kind of like the neon brashly colored one that was like purple and green. I don't know. It wasn't purple and green because that's just the Prowler colors. I can't remember.
There was a purple, white, and black one.
Maybe that was it. I just liked. There was one that was like it looked like very 80s in terms of its color palette. I really liked that one. I thought it was just very ugly in like a very endearing way.
Yeah.
But I can't remember for Peter what the main suit I use. I guess, what are the ones you use? I'll try to think.
Well, for Peter, I don't know what happened, Holden. This is one of those things that I thought the Scarlet Spider suit was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen when the first game came out, and then a switch was flipped, and now that's the only one I play as, really.
Yeah.
I just really like it. I cannot even explain why. I kind of like the hoodie ones for whatever reason. So maybe that's it.
I think I think the hoodie ones are nice because it's just very different. Like that one little thing adds a lot of difference.
Character to it.
Yeah.
So Scarlet Spider, and I just used the default symbiote suit when they had that. I just left it as that. You could change it. I think in the original release you couldn't change it. Maybe I'm mistaken about that.
Can't remember.
But then for Miles Morales, I did wear the 2099 suit for a long time, and then I went into the Spider-Verse, and then I went across the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
and
those are so fun. Those were the other two big ones.
I really like those two suits, and
just
even more than the
defaults
2099
the low
ones.
frame rate on every time you select it.
That drove me nuts. Every time I unlocked one of those suits for a side mission, I would change it back to Across the Spider-Verse, which is what I ended up sticking with most. and it would turn the slow animations on every single time, and it's like buried in the settings to turn it off.
Oh,
like,
see,
okay, I gotta go
I kept
visual.
it on the whole time.
Oh, it drove me nuts to keep it on.
I liked it personally,
But man, I love the look of the Spider-Verse suits.
yeah, they're very good. What'd you think of the final suit Miles gets?
I think I actually like the look of it for the most part, except the hair. I think the hair looks really stupid.
Yeah,
If it was just like a normal, if it was just a normal mask, I wouldn't mind that suit so much, honestly.
Yeah, the shirt, like the torso stuff itself is fine. I like the teal kind of aspect of it is okay. It is, the hair is the biggest flaw, I think. It is just a Nike or Adidas product placement. I can't remember which. Probably Nike.
No,
apparently,
it's Adidas, I believe.
Or Adidas, yeah. Apparently they just made a shirt. They had like a shirt ready, and that's the whole reason it's in the game. So, I don't know. But I don't know. Good suits in general. I do think, I realized the other Peter suit I used a lot was the Amazing Spider-Man 2 one, because I think that's a very good movie suit, personally.
They didn't have the Spider-Verse suit. I thought that was so strange.
That was weird. The only like Spider-Verse one they had was Noir.
Or Noir. I thought that was just so weird that they wouldn't have it, and they had it for Miles.
I think it's honestly a missed opportunity to not have the Spider-Bot ones give you Across the Spider-Verse Miguel too.
Yeah.
I think that would have been cool.
But man, most of the suits are just so atrocious.
Yeah. There's a lot of like original suits to this game, which most of them aren't very good. There's in the original game I liked it, but like a lot of the movie, there's like way too many movie suits for Peter, I think. There's just like, they have like every variant of every suit from every movie for Peter. And I didn't mind that in the first game because a lot of them were like free updates, like they were just added on top of them. But here it's like that's what you get. There's so many other suits from the first game that aren't in there because they kept all those. I don't know. I feel like you could have either had more suits or you didn't need all of those. Like the black and gold suit from No Way Home, I don't need that suit. That suit's kind of dumb looking.
Yeah, it is. I like the idea of the colors, but it's just like, it looks bad in the game.
So, and that's like the 100% suit too, or whatever. That's like the reward you get for completing the
doing
game,
all the districts or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Did they?
No underwear suit.
No underwear suit. Too bad. Yeah, no. So those are the suits. That was a nice conversation about all the suits. You get to play as Venom. That's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
that was I just kept pressing the right bumper and just chucking people. And slamming them and chucking them and then waiting for the takedown so I could rip their heads off.
Yeah, you just break people's backs. It got pretty violent for being a T-rated game. The one
Kraven gets his head eaten.
Yep.
I was like, he's got to eat somebody's head here. And if he doesn't eat Kraven's head, I'm going to be disappointed. And they did it in the most closest they could do to M rating with still getting the T.
Yeah. So on another thing I predicted that didn't end up coming to fruition is because of the fact you play as Venom there and everything, and there's that achievement for symbiote attacks. I thought maybe you get to play as Venom in the post game.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Because I mean,
like,
obviously,
no way.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, how the story was going to end. I was like, well, maybe Harry's still good, and somehow the symbiote gets control of it or something. Maybe that's what happens, but no, it's just you get the symbiote powers again as Peter.
Yeah. Lizard boss fight was a ton of fun too. I think I didn't get the hang of the parry system until all the boss fights at the end, because you just need to know it by then. I feel like
that's kind of where I started learning too.
I was like, I never used it. I would just dodge. I was just so used to dodging.
I did
miss the perfect dodge takedown. That was fun from the first game.
Yeah. I did. I mentioned to you the first time I played it. I feel like even though I got used to, I feel like that parry is so unnecessary in this game. It's just, I don't know. I felt like it was just a weird thing to give Spider-Man to do was a parry.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man seems more of a dodge guy.
Yeah. And like the parry never looked very cool either. It's just like vaguely like pushing against the attack. Like it, I don't know. It seemed bizarre. I did get used to it, but yeah, unnecessary.
I normally am a big parry guy.
Mm-hmm. Ghost of Tsushima parry.
Oh, I love the Ghost of Tsushima parry. Oh,
makes sense in that game because it's a sword.
Oh my gosh! And then you just get the critical hit slash afterwards. Oh, it's so satisfying. Makes me want to replay that game so badly. I can't do it, Holden.
You can't.
Even though it's been a justifiable amount of time now. It's been 3 years. So.
Yeah, you still got a couple years before you can go back to Last of Us.
Yeah. Although Last of Us 2 will hold me over for a while because I haven't played that since release. So that's coming up 3.5 years with the remaster. Yeah. So let's see. Other things that happened story-wise. I don't know. Again, some of the stuff early on, like Harry and Peter riding bike and Harry and Peter going through the school. And those seemed like very much Spider-Man 1 dull missions.
Yeah, those were the least interesting by far.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. You guys are trying to do the Naughty Dog thing, and I just don't know if your storytelling's good enough for it.
Yeah, they don't have the chops for it. Not even like or God of War or anything. Like
yeah. So those are the ones where it's like, okay, I got to do this. But it does make me want to replay the first game a lot to compare them. We haven't even talked about traversal really. The web wings are fantastic.
Oh, they're so fun.
The wind tunnels. I mean, just gonna make it so hard to go back. I will say that New York seemed less like New York in this game to me. Like it was so big that I just never went any one place that often. Like I didn't go. I only went through Times Square literally like half a dozen times the whole game.
Yeah, if even that for me.
And like I hardly went to certain places, and it just felt like. Whereas the first game, it's like, okay, well, Times Square's right here, and here's Madison Square Garden, and here's this, and here's that, and the Avengers Tower, and Central Park, and all these things. And this one, it just like, I just was zooming around the map so fast that just getting from place to place. I don't know. I like how the photo ops were a little bit more unique. I think that was a nice extension of what to do there.
Yeah, that was fun. Even though it was
like
weird
you said,
that like Miles could just send in the photos.
Yeah, Miles can do it too. That was a weird part. And I liked, like you said, spider bots were fun to just kind of see the shockwaves and pick them off and.
Yeah, those were fun because you couldn't mark them on the map, so it was just kind of satisfying to find them. Initially I thought that was going to be more annoying than it was, but I really only had to like sit down and search for a couple.
Yeah,
so.
There was one that was like way above everything, and I kept looking down for a solid few minutes before I realized it was above. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had to figure out how to get to it.
There were a couple like that. They were pretty high.
So I had to I had to do dude. I loved the hold both triggers and an X. To just launch yourself.
I never used
Spider-Man style.
See, I never
original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man style.
I kept forgetting I had it. I only used it a couple times, but
well,
it is a cool move.
You can't do it if you got like your little web. I don't know what to call it. Like in Arkham when you have the right bumper for grapple, like the little circle icon that comes up for everything. You can't use that when it shows up. So you have to like aim off screen. And then do it, and then it will work. Because if you try to do it, you'll just web zip over to wherever that circle thing is.
Weird.
And then it's got like the ultra mega versions of it that have like the literally launch pads labeled on the map, which those are fun too. But yeah, good stuff. Other main story beats, I guess, to hit upon.
The Emily May Foundation just gets rocked several times.
A couple times. I'm like, dude, how does Norman Osborn have insurance on anything at this point?
Right.
That guy's got to be bankrupt.
Oh my gosh. That first time it was the first time was like kind of emotional. I felt so bad for them.
Yeah.
Like when that
and
was
then
happening.
it just happens like again.
Mm-hmm. There's the it's when Peter has the symbiote. Probably the funniest joke in the movie is when he's talking to the bear. He's like the guy who's like has the bear on his head, and he's like, I gotta tell you one thing, I'm all out of honey. I've seen that clip shared around. Thought that was the best quip in the game. So
yeah, I think all around quips weren't as good this game.
Yeah, probably. I think I'd agree.
Yeah, I think the best quip of the two games is when he's trying to stop the train, the subway in one. It's like, oh, that totally worked last time.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I overall like the story more of one, just the character arcs. I got emotional when Aunt May died. Yes. This one, I did not get emotional at the end. Like it was like, oh shoot, but I was like, it felt very. I don't know. I felt more emotional in the Doc Ock boss fight as well. Like when you're on the side of the building, just punching him. I felt it was more cinematic than the ending of this game was. Not that this game didn't have the cinematic moments, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I think one thing I hadn't mentioned really is the pacing for this. While it's very exciting the whole time, the Peter with the symbiote and the Venom stuff, I think, is all just too rushed.
Very fast.
Like it happens.
He just turns evil like really quickly. It's like he just goes from being nice Peter to just MJ, shut up.
Yeah, no, it's a sudden shift, which I think is just kind of uninteresting. Granted, I know like the game is like kind of happening in real time, so it's hard to like spend that much. But I feel like you could just have Peter get the symbiote earlier. Like that would just fix a lot of it. There's so much of the early game that I feel like you could introduce Harry as Agent Venom or whatever early, and then have Peter get it, and I don't know, and then you could have Venom be around a bit longer at the end. Tony Todd, very good Venom voice.
Yes, very good.
Makes sense. I figured it would be. He just has like the deepest, most gravelly voice known to man. So
yeah.
The final battle is, it's good. I like it. A lot of these boss battles have like 3 or 4 phases to it, and I think that's kind of fun. They get a little bit stronger. I think that's multi-phase boss fights are probably more fun. I will say, I'm a little disappointed that the last phase you play as Miles.
Yeah, which like Miles and Harry have no bond whatsoever. I think they literally didn't even talk to each other except in like a phone call or something.
Yeah, like I think you could easily. I think it could have just been add another one onto it. Have 2 be Peter, 2 be Miles, and then have one final Peter one. Like I think that would just be the best way to do it. I don't know. It was just very strange, I thought. Venom gets wings. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't think I've ever seen Venom with wings before. I
thought that was strange.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dragon Venom.
It was strange, but I kind of liked it. Good Venom design. It's very classic. I don't know. What other story things have we missed?
I don't know. We're going to heal the world together. What'd you think of Coney Island?
I liked that part.
That was nice.
Yeah. As far as the kind of walkie around segments go, I thought that was probably the best one, but that's because there were actually like activities. So there are things to look around and find. Yeah, that was good. I did like, it was cool seeing that Tombstone is like fully reformed.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little part. I like the go-kart just running into him and him not flinching at all. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just like genuinely reformed, and so they have to go like rescue him from Craven.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, no. I think a lot of it was very fun, especially the second half, like I said.
I will say, I think they just kind of swept away killing all the Sinister Six stuff. I was like they kill Scorpion, that's fine. They show that on screen. Yeah. We fought Scorpion before, so we don't necessarily need him again. But yeah, then it's just like you find out that he's at least killed Vulture, Electro, and Shocker.
Yeah.
Just like, okay.
Oh, wait, Electro and Shocker are not the same person?
No. They're both in the first game. They're different people.
Okay.
Shocker in the first game is the one that you like chase around that's like robbing the place. He uses like sound waves, and then Electro. Shocker is called Shocker, but he uses sound. That's his thing. I don't know why. And then Electro is the electricity guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Shocker is like more of a small time villain. Yeah, it is confusing. But yeah. So he kills all of those. Oh, and so I don't know if this is technically canon, because from what I understand, it was like not included in the game, but people have found like by going through, walls or whatever, maybe in a place you're not supposed to reach, that like there's even like Rhino's horn or whatever that you can find in like one of his areas. So I don't know if Rhino's actually dead or not. Regardless, a lot of these villains are just gone now, I guess. So
yeah, they just burned them all. Which, I mean, we could talk about the setup for the last game now. So clearly we have Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, appears to be the main villain. Harry's still alive.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to turn into. You have
Doc Ock.
Doc Ock is around.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be a villain? I don't know.
Probably, but maybe not. I feel like it would be weird at this point to redeem him. So.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't remember him being super evil after he gets the tentacle stuff take off, though. Is he? I don't remember.
I feel like he like pretends not to be.
Yeah, he pretends to be or something.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Then you have Cletus Cassidy, Carnage.
Yep.
Apparently coming at some point, whether or not he ties into. I would imagine Carnage is a pretty big villain. He'll probably be in the main story at some capacity. You
have Wraith kind of as an ambiguous character. I would assume Black Cat is going to be around as an ambiguous character. Did they set up anybody else, Holden?
I'm trying to think if there were like weird little hints at stuff in this game that I'm forgetting. I assume we won't get Mysterio again. That seems pretty cut and done here. I don't know. That might be it.
And Chameleon.
Chameleon and Silk.
And Silk is a bad person?
No, Silk's a good guy.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll get any combo of those. Chameleon... Are they setting him up to be...
Potentially a Miguel... what's Miguel?
Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, what's his last name?
Miguel O'Hara, I think.
Miguel O'Hara, yeah.
Chameleon, that mission might have honestly only been it. He could be in the next one, but it's kind of seemed like he is very connected to Kraven in the comics, especially like later on. I think they kind of retcon, or no, maybe that is an aspect from the start. Now that I'm thinking of the original Spider-Man comics, I think he's connected to Kraven. So I don't know if he'll come back, but he is just a guy with a mask. So I don't really know what all you could do with that to make it that thrilling. But
I don't know.
If I were a betting man, I'd say there's going to be a third playable character in the next game. I feel like that just makes sense considering there were two in this. Now, whether or not that's Venom, Harry coming back, I think if they do Silk, that would be a lot to like introduce this character, have her become a Spider-Woman, and then make her playable.
Well, do they do another in-between game?
Yeah, maybe. There's a going internet theory that DLC for this game is going to be Daredevil related, because there's the Nelson and Murdoch firm, which is Daredevil's firm, obviously, which was in the first game. So like in this game, when you go to it, like I think it's the Nelson and Murdoch firm, there's like one of the inside dioramas that you can see from like the outside. It looks just like way more detailed. Like it looks like a playable location almost.
Yeah.
So, and there was also a whole thing with like originally the nameplate was like there was something up with it when it was first released. It was gone. So there's a theory that might be the case. We'll see. There's no currently any DLC announced, but maybe it was a cut area if anything. But
yeah. All right. I think that should pretty much wrap it up. We've been talking about this game for quite a while now. So
yeah.
Spider-Man 2, those were our thoughts. I don't know. Do you want to give a score, Holden?
Scores for games I think are hard, especially I think recency bias affects me a lot more with games than movies because you spend a lot more. There's like a sunken cost fallacy with it. Yeah. But I think I'm pretty comfortable giving it like an 8. I think it's an 8. It's a fun time overall.
It's very fun. Probably didn't have as much sheer enjoyment out of it as I did the first one on the first playthrough. But that second half was a lot of fun. I just don't think the story quite lived up to its potential.
Sure.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's fair.
There we go. That's Spider-Man 2. Hold on, let's go into our final segment, which of course is What Are You Doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing?
All right, Jimmy. This week, aside from getting COVID, apparently, which sucks. There was a couple times during that Spider-Man conversation where my neck acted up.
Yes. Oh no.
I was.
You need a little symbiote, Holden.
I need a little symbiote, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
In terms of movies, didn't watch a ton this week. I guess maybe I can jump to games first, just because it kind of ties into movie. I finished Dead Space. Finished it 2 nights ago.
How was that?
So good. It's a very good game. Really liked it. I'd have to sit down and think about it. On it, but legitimately one of my biggest complaints, and I feel like this isn't the biggest thing, is that the cutscenes are unskippable, which if you die, you have to sit through an entire cutscene again. Oh. Which does suck. And the
easy mode it is for me.
The game is I think they kind of do the God of War thing where it's all presented as like a single take. So I think I don't think you're ever really taking perspective away from Isaac in the game. So that's kind of cool. And I guess it would be a little bit immersion breaking to skip the cutscene, but still it's just kind of annoying when the final boss, I died a few times and there's a very long cutscene before that final boss. So that sucked. Other than that though, very fun game. I think it's a very creepy, scary game. I think it's very creative and it's like the guns you get like a total of 6 or 7, I think. But aside from like kind of an energy assault rifle thing you get towards the beginning, most of them are like very unique to the game and that style of gameplay. So I think that's very much a positive. I'm replaying it right now because New Game Plus, there's like a secret ending if you collect some stuff through New Game Plus, and there's like new enemies that appear too, that even if you play on the same difficulty, just make it a little harder. So I'm just kind of breezing through it on the same difficulty with my fully upgraded weapons and everything. I'll probably finish that in the next few days, I would imagine. I am getting through it a lot faster now that I can just, I'm like in the second chapter and I'm just blowing things apart with like one shot. So
nice.
Makes sense. But after that, I'm going to start the original Final Fantasy VII, I think. I bought it a year and a half ago, like around the time I beat the remake. But I do want to play it because there's the remake of the spinoff that came out last year that I think is going to tie into the remake. But if you haven't played the original, apparently that game does not make much sense. So I'm putting in my dues, I guess, for Final Fantasy VII.
There you go.
But yeah. Other than that, I guess that ties into the movie though. I watched, there's a couple animated Dead Space movies that came out like around the time the first few games came out. I watched the first one last night, and it is probably the most violent animated movie I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
It's story-wise, it's kind of nothing. It's like a prequel to the events. You kind of see how the space station falls and everything. But it's easily the appeal is the animation is pretty good considering the budget, and also it's just very violent, and that's clearly the main focus of it. So it's like 70 minutes. If you enjoy the lore of Dead Space when you play it, I would recommend it. And Dead Space actually has pretty interesting story and lore to it, so I think it was worth it. Other than that, TV-wise, I finished the Scott Pilgrim anime. So good. Loved it. Like, I stand by what I said last week when I'd watched the first half. It goes to some very interesting places I never was expecting. Great voice performance from everyone involved. A lot more Chris Evans than I was expecting, because he's in the original movie, and I kind of figured they wouldn't use him much because he's probably expensive, but his character in the movie is so good, and he's very good in the show too. So, yeah, highly recommended if you like Scott Pilgrim. And other than that, I think that's... Oh, I watched the second episode of Monarch, which I do think is better. It is bizarre to me how they structured that first episode in some ways, because the stuff that happens in the past in the first episode, in the second episode, they're just like they just go back to the beginning of that storyline, which just kind of is weird, because already the timeline is split in half. So now you're making one timeline itself out of order. It felt like you should have just started at the beginning for that timeline. It didn't make much sense to me, but thought it was better. Haven't watched the third one yet. Yeah, I think that's about it, Jimmy. What about you?
Not much, because I was playing Spider-Man a lot. So for me, outside of playing Spider-Man, I would say I finished the Arsenal documentary, and I've pretty much almost completed the new JFK One Day in America docuseries on Disney Plus, which is good.
Nice.
I already knew a lot about it. It was the 60th anniversary this year. I learned a lot about it 10 years ago during the 50th anniversary. I didn't know if it really added that much to me, but I just hadn't watched anything about it in a while, so it was interesting.
I've seen the Hulu series where James Franco tries to stop it from happening.
I have seen it, Holden.
You have seen it?
11/22/63. Yeah, I have seen it. It's all right.
Yeah, I remember I watched it like early high school. That was like one of Hulu's first originals. That was pretty early on.
Yeah. So yeah. But that I think is pretty much it, unless I'm just forgetting something. So there you go. That's what I've been doing. Next week, we might be coming at you with Saltburn, potentially.
Yeah, probably, assuming, times work out for that. Yeah, Saltburn seems to be a movie a lot of people are split on. A lot of people that I really like have really enjoyed it, but I've also seen some people I respect that don't really like it, so we'll see. It might be a big swing, but I at least want to give it, benefit of the doubt, because I like Promising Young Woman so much, so... Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll probably come at you with that, if not something else. But other than that, if you want to leave us a request, you can do so by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes, or email us at tomppodcast@gmail.com, or donate to our Patreon. I believe that's it.
All right, sweet. Until next time, adios, pantalones.
Love you.